he may be a Maple Leaf next year, but it's because, if that's the case, it's because the Maple Leafs matched an offer sheet that was given to Matthew Knies.
The one I want to really talk about is Matthew Knies. Hat trick in a Maple Leafs victory, and that gives him 29 goals and 55 points on the season. In 74 games. This man is 22 years old. He is a 6'3" left wing, and he's from Arizona.
The pride of
This
Scottsdale,
checks
Arizona.
a lot of boxes for a lot of people. Did you know, you were saying before the show you didn't, he is going to be a restricted free agent this summer, which means teams, if they want to, could submit offer sheets.
I also was saying before the show, what is that?
An offer sheet, it was a good question that you asked. An offer sheet is something that can be submitted to a restricted free agent in which a team says, this is the contract we present you. If you sign this, you get the contract and you come to our team provided your existing team does not match this very contract within 7 days. And if the team matches the contract, it means they keep the player and cannot trade them for 1 year. If the team declines, the player goes to the new team and receives draft pick compensation for that player. It happened notably with the St. Louis Blues doing it to players that escape me from, I think, an Eastern
A team that nobody really cares about.
that's an under-discussed, possibly Arizona. No, it's anyway. For the players were inconsequential. It made no impact. Everything was totally fine.
Yep.
The compensation that was received was flipped for some very well used and carefully thought out double retention on a player who is playing a lot. Okay? So that's just a recent example. Everybody's still with me? What we were thinking about, and we're the first to consider this, would a team maybe submit an offer sheet to Matthew Knies of the Toronto Maple Leafs?
I will say emphatically, Matthew Knies is getting offer sheeted this offseason.
You've learned very quickly about this offer sheet process.
It's crazy. I am a sponge. And I am soaking up the fact that is absolutely happening. Matthew Knies, he may be a Maple Leaf next year, but it's because, if that's the case, it's because the Maple Leafs matched an offer sheet that was given to Matthew Knies in the offseason.
Okay, so our dear friend Nick Alberga bumped this from last week during the game. Matthew Knies is not getting offer sheeted. There's no question Knies wants to remain a Leaf for the foreseeable future. I'll jump in there and say parenthetically, as a former reporter, you don't know that.
You're right. Sure. And as somebody who's new to offer sheets, Matthew Knies can still get offer sheeted if he wants to be a Toronto Maple Leaf.
Correct. Playoffs are the focus right now, says Alberga, but when contract talks escalate, it seems like a mid-range deal may be the end result. Okay, I have since remembered what the offer sheets were last year. It was Philip Broberg was signed to, I believe, a $4.9 million AAV that his team, which is escaping me, could not match unless they moved a lot of money out. And Dylan Holloway was signed to a, I believe, $2.9 million AAV that his team could have matched, but it was pretty rich for their blood. In hindsight, $2.9 million a year for Dylan Holloway is like the third best contract in the league.
Yeah.
That is neither here nor there. Toronto has, I believe, $24 million in cap space for this offseason. They have to sign Mitch Marner. They also, of course, would hope to sign Matthew Knies.
John Tavares.
Johnny who?
I forgot.
John Tavares, who
Not the lacrosse guy.
is having an unbelievable career year. Or not career year, contract year.
And quite frankly, has captain experience, so might be ready to take the next step in his career.
That's right.
I can't wait to post this video on YouTube. So they've got to figure out their priorities. So they want leadership. The leadership would be Mitch Marner. Guy scores big goals. Four Nations.
Famously.
Ever heard of it?
When the lights are bright, Mitch Marner shows up.
That's right. So the big game player, you got to pay Mitch Marner and make him the highest paid player in the league. That should be about $22 million of that cap space, right?
I mean, there is legitimate talk about Mitch Marner becoming the highest paid player in the league, which is
all right. Jokey tongue-in-cheek time over.
Yeah.
Rantanen kind of fucked that whole thing up. That was like the last shot at somebody else becoming the highest paid player in the league.
I mean, yeah, I guess
He could maybe get $14 million.
Marner.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially considering how many desperate teams there are going to be this summer.
Also, let me be the first to report, cap is going up.
It's true.
So anyway, offer sheet on Matthew Knies. What does it look like? Let's say Knies coming off a 30-goal season, second contract. You say, all right, short-term deal that gives him, let's say, $5 to $6 million a year. Someone else can come in and just say, fuck it, we're giving him 9.5.
Right.
And that the compensation would be high. And going off of last year's compensation,
it's important to explain the compensation factor because
yes.
it is not straight AAV.
correct. Sometimes GMs don't even understand that.
I don't even know how I understand that since I'm just finding out about offer sheets today.
That is true. Okay, the AAV on offer sheet compensation is calculated by total money divided by years, which is normally how AAV is calculated.
Mm-hmm.
Or, and here's the new wrinkle, not new, it's how they've been doing it, or 5. It's the Shea Weber rule because the Flyers, I believe, tried to offer sheet Shea Weber, and they did some like big kind of phony baloney-ish contract that made it so like maybe they could have stolen Shea Weber. So people said, we're getting rid of that. If you're going to give this huge contract, we'll calculate the AAV by dividing total money by 5. And when you pay the player on your books, it will be the normal AAV. But for purposes of determining what you surrender as compensation to the other team in draft pick form, it's going to be by 5. So the number, instead of saying like, let's say instead of it being like $7 million a year, will be like $12 million a year. And that means that you're going to have to give up more draft picks. Now, in the case of Broberg and Holloway, these were both short-term contracts, so they didn't have to worry about the 5 thing. The 4.9 is 4.9. The 2.9 is 2.9. So in the case of Knies, I'm thinking 9.5 times 2. And that is an awesome contract for Knies because he gets another bite at the apple in a couple of years coming off a $9.5 million contract. That per last year's compensation chart would be 2 firsts, a second, and third round picks. But $9.1 million per last year's compensation chart would be a first, second, and third round pick. So let's say cap goes up, everything goes a little higher. $9.5 million, we'll say, probably is a first, second, and a third round pick. If you are a team trying to poach Matthew Knies, would you give up a first, second, and a third?
Yes.
I believe 9.5 is 2 first round picks. Looking at Puckpedia.
Correct. Yep, yeah. I got that wrong. Right, I think I said that right.
You
maybe?
did. You said 9.1.
Yeah,
you're right.
But you said a first, a second, a third. And I think it's 2 firsts, a second, and a third.
You did say that for initially.
Right. Okay.
But yeah, I do think that I would do that. And yes, it's a high price to pay, but you are getting a stud. Matthew Knies is a stud. And if you're a team that is, there are plenty of teams right now that are just looking for like one more stud player to add to the mix for like their future. You know that you have that. So I would surrender those draft picks. And it's kind of like the trade deadline approach where there are teams that overpay and they know that they're overpaying to get the guy that they want and they're fine with it. And a lot of the times that just works out. And especially when you're talking about a guy who's young, who can be a part of your future for a long time, I would do it. And the other part here to consider is like, consider a team like the Utah Hockey Club.
They're the number 1 team on my list, but go ahead.
If you're a team like the Utah Hockey Club and you look at Matthew Knies and you say, we can offer sheet him here and either get Matthew Knies for a package of solid compensation that like you might not miss as a young team.
And we'll say it's 1, 2, and 3. That's
right.
what it will say.
1, 1, 2, and 3. right?
No.
All right, 1, 2, and 3. I definitely do that.
I'd say you go to the top end of whatever that tier is and pay whatever that is. So if it's, let's imagine it's $9.5 million and you give up a first, second, and third. Go on.
So you put in that offer for Knies, and there's people in the chat, there's Maple Leafs fans that all over Twitter saying, give him a blank check. We keep Matthew Knies at all costs. Sure, if that's your plan and you want to match that, go for it. You know what that does for the Utah Hockey Club? It frees up Mitch Marner. If the Leafs want to keep Mitch Marner, it is going to become exponentially more difficult if they have to pay out the ass for Matthew Knies.
So that's a nice little okie dokie pull.
Right.
You make it so Knies is going to cost a ton of money no matter what, whether on your team or on their team. In order for them to keep him, they have to pay that money, and then you then take the other guy. It's a very smart maneuver. I would do that if I'm the Utah Hockey Club.
Definitely.
What do they have to? I mean, respectfully, Kyler Yamamoto is playing on their second line right now. You think they could not use a 30-goal scoring wing when you have young defensemen and young forwards on the way? Like real blue chip prospects. They are going to be good in as far as that is concerned for a little while. They've got the pipeline.
Yeah, I mean, Sean has made this point many a time about the Buffalo Sabres. They don't need prospects. They don't need picks. You do have to replenish at some point, but now is not the time. Go get the good player.
The problem with the Buffalo Sabres is they currently do not have the picks to qualify. They do not. Puckpedia has a nice breakdown of what teams have the assets to offer sheet at certain frames, and the Sabres anywhere between 6.8 to 11.4. The Sabres do not have the picks to offer sheet Matthew Knies.
Which pick is missing? Their second or
I don't know. It doesn't break it down like that.
There's also, I mean, if they're a pick away, you can go recoup the pick.
But you got to get your pick
own.
back.
Yeah.
Famously, that's what the St. Louis Blues did last year.
They do not have their second round pick in 2026, the Sabres.
Okay, so and the 2026 of it all is the other point I wanted to bring up. You are surrendering your 2026 first round pick. And if you are a team that might not make the playoffs, and especially might finish bottom 11, which gives you a chance to get to the first overall pick, is that a huge risk that you are taking? And I say that is a very, very big risk for the three teams that I think make most sense to offer sheet Matthew Knies: Utah Hockey Club number 1, Boston Bruins number 2, Buffalo Sabres number 3.
That 2026 pick, the Sabres just shipped out in the second round pick. They shipped it out in the Dylan Cousins trade. So
I don't believe the Bruins have their second round pick.
They currently have the picks.
They don't have their second round pick this year, I don't think.
Okay. All right. So Bruins in the running. I'm
sorry. They have two second rounders, but maybe not their own. Yes, correct. Go on.
It would be a risk if you're the Bruins, I think. But is it a risk worth taking, especially knowing when we had this discussion with Felger and Maz yesterday. It's like the Bruins are not gonna be good next year, but I don't think that they're going to be bottom of the league bad.
I think I agree with that. I think that just given the general mandate of like you're not allowed to slowly rebuild, you have to still be competitive. Bruins, by the way, I should note, also have the Maple Leafs first round pick in 2026. So if that can. That probably is not going to turn into Gavin McKenna, but I don't know. Like they can wrap their heads around. At least we're keeping a first round pick. If you have 2 first round picks next year and you turn one of them into stealing Matthew Knies, ooh, I would love it.
Yeah, 100%.
Boy, if those jerseys would not adorn this set. One on each side, one behind Sean, 3 Matthew Knies.
Sean, do you have the list of teams that are currently eligible if they wanted to give an offer sheet to Matthew Knies at like a pretty high number?
Yeah, give it to me in the third highest tier. So not the 4 first round picks, not the 2 firsts. The
anything
1, 2,
between what's currently, it'll change slightly, but the 6.8 to 9.1, those teams would be the Anaheim Ducks, Boston Bruins, Calgary Flames, Chicago Blackhawks, Detroit Red Wings, Los Angeles Kings, the Montreal Canadiens, the Nashville Predators, New Jersey Devils, Philadelphia Flyers, Pittsburgh Penguins, Seattle Kraken, and your Utah Mammoth.
I did wonder about the Kings.
Penguins would rock.
Yeah.
also, like, Penguins rock because of the Dubas factor of it all. And I think for the Penguins, they should also be on the hunt for Mitch Marner. I think that the Chicago Blackhawks would be on the hunt for either one of those players as well. But, like, again, the risk factor here for all of these, like, very bad teams, like the Penguins, like the Blackhawks, like the Bruins, there's risk that you're giving up your 2026 first-round pick.
It's the McKenna pick, and I will remind people that the pick that turned into Kyrie Irving was like the 14th pick of the lottery. It was by the Cavaliers stunk that year, but it was just like a kind of throwaway pick they got at the dedeadline for moving a guy.
But that was because the NBA rigged it because LeBron left and they gave the pick to the Cavs.
That's probably true.
I feel it's important to point out that this is just based off of the picks. It doesn't necessarily take into account like cap space or anything like that. So
correct. As Bill Belichick famously said, cap space can be maneuvered in a number of ways. So we're just asking the question. Wonder what everybody's answer is. I know that people will do the, like, again, I'm not trying to be preachy, but there's one thing I learned from being a beat writer for kind of a long time. Never say never.
Right.
They're like, you idiot, it's not happening. It's probably not happening. It could happen. Dougie Hamilton was not going to fucking leave the Bruins. Oh, Dougie Hamilton's on the Bruins anymore. How the fuck did that happen?
Yeah.
These things.
They would never let him go.
Mikko Rantanen is not going to end up.
He's not going to get traded twice.
He's not going to end up in the Central Division. What are you talking about? Oh, he's Dallas Star by fucking season's end.
Yeah.
Sidney Crosby's getting traded.
There's no way the Denver Nuggets are going to fire their coach and GM with 4 games remaining in the season.
There's no way Tyreek Hill is going to get in trouble.
No way Luka Doncic is going to get traded to the Los Angeles
The Luka
Lakers.
stuff last night broke my heart.
In what regard?
I don't really
Mavs
care
fans?
about any of that, and watching him sit and just cry made me feel bad.
We all silly like the mayor.